The AFP is reporting on another ridiculous comment from Benjamin Netanyahu, who is, of course, the right-wing prime minister of Israel. So Netanyahu decided to throw some haymakers at the BDS movement. For those of you who don't know, that movement is the boycott, divestment, and sanctions campaign that's putting, quote, political and economic pressure on Israel over its occupation of the Palestinian territories in a bid to repeat the success of the efforts that ended apartheid in South Africa. So Netanyahu is afraid that it'll work, so of course he's now compared it to Nazi Germany while visiting the Polish foreign minister. He said, quote, "The attacks on the Jews were always preceded by the slander of the Jews. What was done to the Jewish people then is being done to the Jewish state now. In those days, we could do nothing. Today, we can speak our mind, hold our ground. We're going to do both." So remember, he's talking about the BDS movement there. He's not talking about ISIS or jihad. He's not even talking about Hamas. He's talking about the BDS movement. He said, "The attacks on the Jews were always preceded by the slander of the Jews. What was done to the Jewish people is now being done to the Jewish state. In those days, we couldn't do anything. Now we can fight back." Okay, but what they're trying to do very clearly is, through peaceful means, get a Palestinian state. That's what they're trying to do. They didn't say, hey, go pick up, some AK-47s, go get some grenade launchers, and let's go to work. What they said is, hey, we actually agree with Netanyahu and the broader sentiment in Israel in the sense that we're not militants. We don't want to literally fight here to try to get the establishment of a state. We want to go in a political and diplomatic direction. We want to apply pressure internationally. We want to, without shedding any blood, find a way to establish a Palestinian state in the same way that you guys established the state of Israel, through the UN. So here we're trying to rally the international community to crack down on the economics of Israel, to push you in a corner to make you go, okay, no more, our economy hurts too much, now there's civil unrest in our country, now we'll do something to permanently get a peace deal and to get a Palestinian state. So look at the hypocrisy of Netanyahu on this. Because any way that anybody tries to establish a Palestinian state, he immediately goes, you're like Nazis, you're anti-Semites and you're Nazis. But then, what the fuck do you want them to do? Just accept the occupation and lay down and say, okay, no Palestinian state anymore, and you guys can do whatever the fuck you want, and steal more of our land, by the way, as you just did. We love it. Oh, we love it. It's so great. Is that what you want them to do? Because you're leaving them no option. Whenever Hamas attacks, whenever there's any actual fighting, you condemn it. And you should. You're right to condemn that, because oftentimes civilians die and it's counterproductive. But you condemn that. You also condemn it when they go directly through the UN. Like Jordan proposed a peace deal for the Palestinians at the UN. Pretty much everybody supported it but the U.S. and Israel. And the idea was 1967 borders, let's shake on it now, work out the details, and have it done within 5 years. You guys said no, and you're anti-Semites for even proposing that. So it's no when they fight you. It's no when they try to go through the UN and do it diplomatically. When they sit face-to-face with you and try to get a peace deal the same way, okay, so don't go through the UN, but let's sit together and work this out. You say no to any state. And then now, when they're like, okay, finally we're going to go to the International Criminal Court and we're going to put pressure on you politically and economically, you go, no, you're an anti-Semite. You're like the Nazis for doing this. No, but this is fundamentally the opposite of Nazis. In fact, when he says this is disrespectful to everybody who was involved in that, to all the ancestors who were in Nazi Germany during Hitler's rise. This is fucking disrespectful to those people. Because you have people using peaceful means to try to resolve a problem, and he's saying you're like the people who shoved Jews into gas chambers and murdered them, and did it systematically. No, it's... What we have here is a situation where Netanyahu is exploiting a tragedy for political gain, and he could not be more factually incorrect in his understanding of it. Okay? And look, I said it before, I'll say it again. I'm totally in favor of this movement, and I'm in favor of this movement because I am pro-Israel. Because I understand, unlike this fucking asshole, that the way that you get long-term peace and stability in Israel is to do a two-state solution on the 1967 borders. You build a wall, and you have both Palestine and Israel recognized by the international community, and you call it a day. Now, does that mean, there's never going to be any fighting anymore ever? Of course not, because there's right-wing idiots on both sides in the Palestinian territories and in Israel who are going to say, I want all the land, I want all the land. But those people are not interested in peace to begin with. So they're dismissed from the adults' table in the conversation when the adults decide, let's do a two-state solution. Okay, so that's the answer, and that would give long-term peace. Or certainly we would get much closer to peace if we do that. Because when you do that, what happens? You take away the venom and you take away the main argument used by people like Hamas, where they say they're never going to give us a state anyway, let's fight back and let's resist and let's end the occupation and let's kick them off the land. Well, if you're willing to show that you're reasonable and, okay, let's have peace and let's do a two-state solution. Hey, look, you have a state now. A lot of people are going to go, yeah, the Hamas guys were wrong. They wanted to do violence all along. You know, Fatah and the more open-minded people said, hey, let's actually try to work something out. They were right. Look, it worked out. We have the evidence here. So, in my opinion, it's more pro-Israel to be in favor of this movement, so you put economic pressure on them, and you make them get to the table to make a peace deal, and that leads to long-term stability. If you're against this movement and you're for continued occupation and continued expansion, that's only going to lead to more conflict and more strife for everybody.